What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now on CannaBuzz, and if you're joining us on YouTube or Spotify or the podcast universe, thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. This one's for the growers. We've got Chris Trump on the show. We're going to be talking all about organic growing, indigenous microorganisms, IMOs, talking all about IMOs. JR was just talking to me about how excited he was to talk about IMO 1 and IMO 2 in particular. So we're going to be getting into it. But before we get too far, I need to give some folks some shout outs. First off, shout out to everyone in the CannaBuzz community. If you enjoy our episodes, if you enjoy the YouTube channel, you can support us by going to cannabuzz.app and joining our members only community there. You can use the code BUZZ for your first month free. It's as little as $4.20 a month. Gives you access to the community, helps support the channel, helps JR go to things like the Dude Grows Cup and farms up and down the West Coast and film videos and all that sort of stuff. So we really appreciate your support, and we'd love to see you over there in the comments. Also, shout out to our friend Dirk at lostcoastplanttherapy.com. They've been supporters of the show now for a couple years, and we really appreciate it. If you're looking for an organic IPM spray that you can use indoor or outside, check out lostcoastplanttherapy.com or find it at your local grow store or online at your favorite retailer. And then last shout out from me before I throw it to JR, and then we'll get into the episode, is going to go to sacred3mushrooms.com. We just did an episode last week all about testing of fungi, of magic mushrooms, if you will. We've talked about testing results and all sorts of new things that have been going on in that scene. Really interesting episode. So check out that episode with Tanazi. Go to tanazigardens.com and you can use the code CannaBuzz for a discount. And then JR, over to you.
Thanks, Q. We got our Tiki announcements. Tiki is doing a raspberry rain that he's offering as a free pack with every purchase and 30% off the site. And that is a Tiki Rain Cross. And if any of you are familiar with the Tiki Rain, it is a unique variety. It tests very high in THCA, but it also tests in a lot of the other cannabinoids as well. So it has a very broad profile and brings a lot to the table medicinally and pain-wise. So this is also a 70-30% sativa leaner, but this one is good for outdoors or greenhouse. So this is the time of the year to maybe get those cracked and get them in the ground. Also, I want to talk about Raw Genetics. They got their Tropical Mule. That is Gelinade by Ziggy Guy. And Gelinade, if you're familiar with that, is super lemon. It's like a very strong citrus. The Ziggy Guy is going to bring some fruitiness to that to kind of round it out, some sweetness to it. So you could find that at rawgenetics.io.
Awesome. Well, let's get into our episode. So let's welcome our guest. Today, we are very fortunate to have Chris Trump on the show. He's been actively studying and working in the natural farming traditions. He's been teaching. I've been hearing this guy's name on all sorts of podcasts. I was trying to think while JR was talking. I was like, I think I've heard Chris Trump on Shango Los's podcast, and I'm sure some others, or at least the name pop up. And so we're really excited. JR was just talking about how we're excited to finally get Chris Trump on the show and learn from you. So thank you. Welcome to the show, Chris. Oop, you're on mute. There we go.
Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Good time. I'm excited about this one. I have so many questions because I'm just kind of embarking in this journey myself as an urban farmer. But one of the things we always ask our guests when they first come on the show is how you fell in love with the plant and how the plant has helped get you where you are today.
That's awesome. Good question. I met Mary Jane when I was 11 years old in Hawaii, and I had all kinds of journeys at a young age. I got a felony in 8th grade for selling weed, and I took a 20-year break when I turned 18. And coming back to uh, cannabis was one of like health. It was totally different. I was 38 years old, and I was like, okay, I have some things that there's choices for, and this seems like the best choice for my body and psyche. And yeah, it's been really good. Helped me sleep and all the wonderful things. And then I don't grow. I never have actually. I got to design a multi-million-dollar indoor greenhouse in Colorado, and have worked with a bunch of people in the industry for many years now. But it's just not been something I've done personally. Work a lot with food crops, but yeah, I really think it's a wonderful medicine that nature has offered us, and yeah, happy to be a part of the community and the role I play.
So, right before we were recording the episode, JR mentioned something about how you had a farm on Hawaii. Is that right? So, yeah, just kind of catch us up on, I guess, what you're up to these days, because you mentioned you do some farming. So, I just love for the listeners to kind of understand what you're up to.
Yeah, well, I've dreamt and imagined and evil laughter plotted how to change the world of agriculture as we know it into something a little more human centric and better for my kids in this next generation. Going to the grocery store and finding all the food is medicine is kind of the dream. And so, um, and to that end, I've plotted different ways and worked with this beautiful natural farming community to see how best to educate and really shift the dial. And I've traveled all over the world in the last 10 years, teaching and working with farms and farmers, working in the developing nations, Cambodia and Myanmar, and while traveling has been amazing, and I've gotten to really see the impact of that. I want to set up a place where people can see the long-term effects of natural farming and kind of a teaching farm. And so, for the last year and a half, I've been working on what that project looks like, and then finding the right partners to make it happen. So, this year, I will be breaking ground / embarking on teaching farm on the Big Island of Hawaii, in my hometown, and inviting people to participate. It'll have a lot of parts or aspects of what's going on there, but yeah, that's been a lot of my focus while doing the work and still working with farmers. I've been working with a big coffee farmer, probably the biggest Kona coffee farmer, still going there. And they've had amazing success getting rid of their coffee borer beetle and rust and all kinds of disease and bug things that were coming up, just using liquid IMO. So that's been really cool to see their um, kind of one of the staple crops that Hawaii is known for, really becoming a KNF crop. So, yeah.
So one of my questions was, you're learning a lot of traditional practices, but you're in this teaching role, and you're still probably have one foot in the white paper community as well. So how do you um, advance your training in both those realms as you're bringing forth information to the people that you're going to be having at your school?
Yeah. You mean me personally? How do I advance?
Yeah, how are you kind of advancing your knowledge base based on the traditional learning that you've acquired, and also at the same time with the more kind of Western scientific side of things.
Yeah, that's I would say if I have uh, a skill that's helped a lot in this journey, it's my hunger for answers. So I like to know what and why, and I'll dig for that. And so I've gotten to meet a bunch of amazing people in the scientific community and have incredible dialogue, and then gotten to work with some of them. But it's been nature that's been the best teacher over the years. We're using this tech, and my my work primarily in the last 3-4 years has been very functional. I haven't had the opportunity to do a bunch of research papers, or I've been, working with farms and doing the work of natural farming, kind of on the application side, and with that, bunch of different places in the world, bunch of different crops. I've gotten to learn from nature what works and what doesn't, and really gotten to ask why, troubleshoot, and that has been a huge education, and one that yeah, it's at times costly. When something doesn't work, it's like, uh-oh, this is something we haven't encountered before. And but then overcoming, understanding what and why is really rewarding. We did trial IPMO in the last several 10 years. And I got to send some samples over to University of Hawaii Manoa campus. I have a really wonderful researcher friend there, Dr. Kunhui Wang, and she did a quick trial on the effects of IPMO versus metarhizium, which is a product on the market. And IPMO was extremely successful, and more than 3 times more successful than that product on the market for what they were trying to treat. And so that's going to continue. I'm going to keep kind of playing with the pest prevention tool that IPMO is.
Awesome. Well, speaking of, earlier you were talking about kind of the whys of the things that you're doing. We're gonna jump into this next section of the show is going to be all about IMO 1. So as we kind of get into that subject, I'd love for you to help kind of explain to folks that they just heard me say an acronym. They're like, what are you talking about? What is IMO 1? And then the follow-up question was, what's the purpose of collecting IMO 1?
Sweet. Yeah. So IMO, we use acronyms just to save us from saying long things all the time, but indigenous microorganism is what IMO stands for. And it's a bit of it is the core of natural farming. And it's something that when studied and put under the microscope, literally and figuratively, IMO is a effective way to tend to the microbial life of your soil. So soil, in one sense, being outdoor, the soil that gets better and deeper and richer over time. But also in the cannabis industry, we found ways to really create living soil and use IMO to make really resilient grow beds that can, function at a really great level for, you know, 10 years plus. So we're, we're using IMO kind of to emulate or to return a growing environment to that inner relationship between plants and microbes that nature thrives on. And so IMO is that tool, and it's a really wonderful one. It's not super easy. It is one of the more nuanced things and you can do in regenerative agriculture, but really effective.
Well, I'm super interested in it because, um, a lot of us we buy targeted microbial products, and those are all manufactured and those are all expensive, very expensive. And so I'm kind of trying to play around with the idea of, that natural nutrient cycling through exudates and through enzymatic exchanges. And so I want to start building a repertoire, a toolbox, so to say. And I feel like, IMO 1 and 2 are kind of like the beginnings of building that toolbox. And so with IMO 1, I'm at the point where I've gotten my bamboo wooden bowl. I put in my slightly cooled rice, and I've set it underneath the bamboo grove with a mesh screen over it for collection. And so, how long should I leave that rice out for collection? Um, and does temperature have to do and humidity have to do a lot with that?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And having a box that has some holes in the underside of it so that that rice can interact to some degree with the soil that you're placing it on or in the environment you're placing it on can be really huge. Um, Temperature is the way that you set your timer on that collection. So IMO 1, you put it out, and the warmer things are, the faster microbes do stuff with it. The colder things are, the slower they do. So that same job, um, we have this huge internal, temperature regulation that happens. Big organism, lots of mass. These itty bitty things don't have their own individual, thermal protection. They're not insulated with a bunch of mass, and so they work in a conglomerate for temperature. But when it's below um, 40 degrees, if you ever get to that 40-degree mark, you can't do anything like that outdoors. I'm a one won't work at 40 degrees or lower. So if at night you're getting down to that 40-degree temperature, then you're probably better off kind of throwing the rice in the compost and setting your box on the shelf until you see a week where your nighttime lows are staying above 40 degrees. Um, it's just it's kind of your bottom threshold of outdoor possibility. Um, but at if you're nighttime lows are in the 60s and your daytime highs are mid 70s, then you got about 5 to 6 days from the time you place it until you collect it. If
Okay.
it's a 105, then you probably have like 4 days, maybe 3.
Okay. So I'm leaving it out for, let's say, 4 or 5 days or something like that. What should I look for, like, in terms of visuals? What's bad? What's good? If I come back and it's all a certain color, I'm like, oh, this is all bad, or oh my god, this is all great. I'd love for you just to kind of give me some tips there visually. What am I looking for, good and bad?
Yeah. So one little cheat hack you can do if you've gone out and you don't know if it's ready is you can put your fingers under the box and touch the bottom of it. If it's a little bit warm, you're probably good. It's probably ready to go. That microbial life getting going on that box will create some temperature. And so warmth on the bottom of the box is a good sign that your box collection's ready. What you don't want to do is you don't want to 2-3 days into it, let's just see how they're doing, and then you pop that paper towel off and you have a look. That's kind of the end of that collection. Once you open it, usually it's not gonna kick back off. So if it was almost gonna start kicking off and being ready at day 3 and you opened it, you probably stopped that process, and now it might kind of be a failure. So what we want to do is nobody likes to hear that there's a little bit of learning curve, but there is. And so what you want to do is open it or harvest it when it's ready and not before, also not after. So the timing is pretty important. So if you put out 5 boxes in the exact same spot and you harvested at day 4, 5, and 6, and it turned out day 5 was great, you would see day 4 is kind of a disappointment, and day 6 it might be 100% trichoderma. So what'll happen in a good collection in the forest, if you get some fungi going in there, you'll have a little bit of color, most likely some spots of this and that, but a good kind of bloom, and then the rice itself will cake up like tempeh, like really solid with life. And that's a really great collection, good sign. What you don't want is like solid pink, or one, a bunch of a color just going to town through the middle of it and nothing else. That's usually a sign of some sort of kind of decomposition factor, where you're more just composting your rice than you are getting everything to grow. And that's really what we're doing, is we're composting to some degree, where the bottom of a forest floor is breaking down plant materials and wood stuff and leaves. But there's also microbes that are working in the soil to work with roots, and those guys are really what we want to be trying to work with and look for. Is the stuff that's in that like top half inch of soil is it's a good stuff. So a bad sign is a blue green solid through, kind of powdery, puffy. You play with it and it kind of powders off. That is trichoderma. It is not bad. People pay a bunch of money to put trichoderma in their soil for various reasons. So it's not like a negative. My cat's come to say hi. Trichoderma is not bad, but in this context, we don't want it to be the only thing we're getting. We would like some more diversity than a monoculture. And so, gray is fine. Dark gray is fine. That kind of, what happens is people get a bloom and then they're like, oh no, it's kind of blackish or kind of gray. I think that's got to be bad, because they've heard of like black mold or something. And what happens is the white stuff, or that mycelium, when it sporulates, produces a really dense spore head, or like fruiting head, like a mushroom head. And under a microscope, it's beautiful and interesting, but not under the microscope. When you have a forest of fruiting heads and you look at it, it's black or gray. And that's simply because the light's not passing through it. It's not lighting up like monofilament. When it's freshly blooming before it sporulates, it'll look real white, but that same material will look dark gray if it gets a fruiting head, just because it's so dense.
Interesting. And so now, if we have come to the point where we've determined that we have what we feel like is a successful collection, should we be immediately converting that into IMO 2, or is there some kind of storeability within that?
Yeah, IMO 1 has zero storability. Like we're talking hours at the most. So once you open that lid, you want to, as soon as possible, even we are going on a long drive to get something up in the mountains, I'll take the bowl and the sugar with me so that I can make it there on the way before I drive home, so that it's nice and dormant and ready to put on the shelf. Yeah, IMO 2 is your storable material, and it really is such a wonderful thing. If you have, 6, 7 IMOs on the shelf, you have the entire grow store's microbes really in a dormant state on the shelf. And those will keep for 3 to 5 years if you keep them nice. And so, yeah, IMO2 is pretty amazing, can be used in all kinds of ways, but it is your indigenous inoculum for soil life.
So then, that's great. Let's talk about IMO 2 then. That was going to be our next section. So what is it? You already got me, interested in making it. So you were saying, like we were talking about earlier, I've inoculated some rice after several days. It's looking a little funky or whatever. It's got some growth in it. So what do I do with it now to make it IMO 2?
Yeah, I have a simple YouTube video on it, just in case you forget after hearing this, but it's just equal weights sugar, brown sugar to IMO 1, and then mix it up, kind of massage it gently all together, kind of expose the microbes to the sugar, and they will get the water sucked right out of them, which will cause them to go into a dormant state. So they'll sporulate. So if you have a fungi and it's cruising and making, growing its body, and now it goes into a desert instantly, it'll push its fruiting, its nucleus into a fruiting head and create spores. Those we know can live for thousands of years in an iceberg, or several years in our IMO 2 on the shelf. And so that is a dormant state of the fresh bloom of stuff that just happened in the forest on your rice.
Hey, JR, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So why is brown sugar the preferred method, not like molasses?
Yeah, so brown sugar is helpful because it's balanced in a kind of pH, and then also balanced as far as a nutrient goes. But the reason we use it here, one of the leading effects it has is its dryness. So it is low in moisture, and just like the long sea voyagers would put things on salt, like they want to pack their fish for a long sea voyage, they'd stuff it in a barrel of salt so it's preserved. That's because microbes need a water molecule to do their processes. So to break down or to ferment, microbes need water. By bringing in brown sugar, you're actually, and that's specifically that weight, equal weights, you're accounting for 100% of the water that's in that IMO 1 with dry sugar. And so once that sugar gets locked into, or that water molecule gets locked into a chemical bond with sugar, it now is not really plant or microbe available. So now you have a desertified environment, dry, just like that salt barrel that'll keep that fish indefinitely. And that causes everything to just sit there waiting to be reintroduced to water, which you, the farmer, when you're ready to use IMO 2, will do.
Okay, so JR had a question here about when I'm mixing these two things together. Do I have to be worried about damaging the microbes in some way? Like, do I need to use a certain finesse or anything like that to make sure I'm not, you know, hurting what I just created?
Yeah, absolutely. This is not throw it in a blender kind of mixing. And it's just really we don't have to get it like we're not needing dough. We really just we want to kind of break apart some of the chunks and expose the IMO1 material to the sugar so that that dryness, that osmotic pressure from the sugar will yank on all those water molecules. You don't have to have every chunk down to, the size of a grain of rice. If there's chunks in there, they'll be fine. They'll get yanked on eventually by the sugar, but we do want a pretty well mixed material. But yeah, if you took that all out, think of it as like a city in a jar, city in a box. You got your nice bamboo box, you just pulled it in, and you got, 3 trillion people living in that box. And then you take it and you put it under a press, or you start smashing it with a hammer. You will kill everything really effectively. So it is somewhere between kneading dough and lightly salting your meal. So it's just a little more intense than lightly salting, and definitely less than kneading dough.
And so, as we are kind of progressing in that fermentation process where the liquids are being separated and the actual mass is being depleted, um, what kind of sensory type of sense are we having to know that we're moving in the right direction?
Yeah. Back to IMO1. If you open it up and the center's real gooey and slimy, that's a real bad sign. That usually means that you're a day late. So next time you put it out in those same weather conditions, you want to harvest it a day earlier. If it's really slimy, what will happen is it'll get real active, most likely. You have a lot of really active bacteria, and they will start to cause that IMO2 to go off and bubble and be real active. You don't want to underdo it on the sugar. You want equal weights or more sugar. You don't want to go light on sugar. Because real active or bubbling active IMO2 is the death of your diversity. That is probably means use it right away, get it out on your garden, because it's not going to store. You're not going to have a dormant IMO2. So paying attention to that, you can definitely add more sugar if you see the beginning of some bubbles or something. There also are just air bubbles that are escaping out of the chunks of rice. So, some air in there is not the end of the world. You don't need to freak out with some air. But if it does start bubbling, it's a bad sign. You want to keep it in a cool, dark place, kind of like wine. And yeah, so out of direct sunlight for sure. And otherwise, it just kind of smells like miso. If you have some miso paste for making miso soup or something, it's kind of a sweet and pleasant aroma.
So if I want, I've got my IMO2 or maybe even IMO3. Can I add microbes that, like we were talking about earlier? You were talking about trichoderma, things like that. Can I add like these other micro products to my IMO, or is that too much?
Yeah, I mean, we have yet to unpack the data we've gotten, but we did get to jump in on a free study that a massive DNA lab did. And so we submitted three different IMO4 samples, and we got about it was a 700 species, unique species diversity. So it was like 400 bacteria and 300 fungi, or two. It was different in each sample. 200 fungi, 500 bacteria. etc. I mean, not exactly that. There's other things in there too, but unique species. So 700 unique species, and in that jug that you want to use, you have one. Each one of those jugs has one, except EM. EM has 3. So you're talking about, oh, we have this one little microbe that does something interesting. It's like, yeah, but nature actually has all of those in spades. We have a lot of that. And so why do you need that? If you're doing this right, you'll never need to buy products again. Trichoderma, I mean, we can fail and have highly effective indigenous trichoderma. And like you could do that any day of the week because you could fail like without even trying, right? You could be like, hey, I actually had stuff to do. I'm not going to get back to that till 2 weeks later. You come back 2 weeks and it's full of trichoderma. It's like, cool. Save myself $500 for the year.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, as we're starting to look at using these as either a foliar application or a root drench application, with the IMO2, I noticed in some of your talks that we're kind of accompanying those with other things like our labs or our FPJs or OHNs, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
what is a good kind of, if we've developed that IMO2, what is a good ratio for root drench per gallon, and maybe the same for foliar?
Yeah. If you've gotten good IMO2, you're winning. It's on the shelf. What I would recommend is that you get yourself a little aerator with some air stones and oops, and go ahead and make liquid IMO. So we add OHN, FPJ, brown rice vinegar, just rice vinegar, or apple cider if we don't have rice vinegar. Rice vinegar, you can get it like a grocery supply store. Should be like $6 a gallon. Pretty inexpensive. And then a little bit of brown sugar, some humic acid, and some sea water or just sea salt without its anti-caking agents. So some nice pure sea salt. But all those things combine to a really effective way to grow microbes in a water column. Now, if you do that, you can drench that into your soil. Really, you'd want to spray your plants with it too. Spray it right before the lights go off, ideally. And yeah, that is kind of, in my opinion, the best thing you could do with your IMO2. You could put it in some water and water it on your soil, and that is something you could do. You could water your compost with it. But yeah, liquid IMO, I would say, would be the most effective thing. But don't change the liquid IMO recipe. I spent a couple of years looking at it under a microscope and playing with the recipe, and it's that makes microbes grow in a water column, and you're not really going to produce microbes if you put a bunch of nutrients in there. Some people like to make witch's brew, put like alfalfa meal and all the things in there. This isn't that kind of tea. This is just for microbes. You can make teas for nutrients. This is a microbe tea. Let it be that.
Interesting. That's a good tip there. So how often am I applying this to my like grow bed or my pots or whatever? What's
Yeah.
a good pro tip?
Yeah, spray your plants, their stems, and the soil on which, that you can reach once a week. Really, if you're doing liquid IMO once a week, you're not dealing with bugs or disease. If you made good IMO too, that is the end of bugs and disease.
That's great. I'm always JR knows me, especially in the summer. I'm always bitching and moaning about bugs eating up my plants. So that's good pro tip. Are people using that as like a foliar spray outdoors, and like you're saying, it's deterring those pests.
Yeah, use it in the evenings, like 4 p.m., 5 p.m., a couple hours before the sun goes down, depending on where you are. And yeah, once a week, you can, and don't, again, this is, until come to glass, learn about how this all works. Don't go throwing everything. You're like, okay, well, I got liquid IMO. Now I'm going to throw everything on my shelf that I need to get rid of because I don't use it anymore in with the liquid IMO and spray it all together. Big difference in what you're going to get, and I would say you could probably lose all the effectiveness of the IMO. So yeah, not to be willy-nilly adulterated. Believe it or not, it is a pretty nuanced tech. It's pretty easy to do, but it's also easy to break if you try hard enough.
Well,
I mean,
JR, oops, go ahead.
worst case scenario, I've got the IMO2, and I've got maybe some fish hydrolysate or fish amino acid. Just those two together would be of benefit, would they not?
Yeah, so if you take that IMO2 and you make liquid IMO and then you go to spray it and you add in a little hydrolysate, that'd be great. And go out and it'd be fine. Not a ton of hydrolysate, use it pretty lightly in combination with the microbes. But if you took like that fish hydrolysate and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna throw it in my bucket while I'm brewing my microbes, now I have none of my microbes multiplying in the water column because I just ruined the whole recipe.
Oh,
So
okay.
fish hydrolysate will make it so you don't get that wonderful aerobic fungal and bacterial yeast growth. It just ruins that brew process. So you got to throw it in right before you put it out.
Wow. Okay. So the next one we've been building up to is IMO3. I don't know what IMO3 is, so that's a new one for me. So let's explain real quick what IMO3 is. And then I have a note here that you use some sort of substrate when you're making it. So is it like a bran or what sort of thing? So yeah, I would love to have you explain those things.
Yeah, the best recipe right now, in my opinion, of stuff you can get pretty easily is you can go to the animal feed store and you can get rice bran and crimped oats. And so I would use like, 25% rice bran and 75% crimped oats on my grain side. And then I'd match that weight with wood chips on my carbon side. And so now I got a 50% wood chips, 50% grains and bran pile. And there's a bunch of nutrients you add. I have an IMO3 video, but we add some liquid nutrients. We don't make it too wet. It's actually lightly moist. And we add our IMO2s in there. And hopefully we have like 6 IMO2s at least from different places that are going in. That would be ideal. And now our microbes grow out on substrate. It takes about a week, keep it under 120 degrees, and now we have huge amount of microbial life. It dries out, we run out of water, and now you have a bunch of spores, basically a huge, now 100-pound pile of spores, and you can inoculate your gardens with that. And you can put that right on top of the soil. So you have a living soil bed, come in, place that right on top, and now your soil blooms, your plants are happy, the worms multiply, all is right in the world. So IMO3 is just growing out your IMO2 collections.
That's really cool. So am I sprinkling it almost like a top dressing mulch or something like that? It kind of sounds like.
Yeah, you really don't need much of it. Yeah, it's kind of like you might put salt and pepper on a steak, top of your soil. But yeah, it's like a 10 by 10 bed. I would only need a gallon of material for a 10 by 10 bed.
Okay.
And so is it how, in my mind, I'm seeing it being similar to the bokashi process, correct?
Bokashi is an anaerobic process. So bokashi, you throw all that in there and you snap the lid down and you let that cook along, because bokashi you're using mostly facultative anaerobes, so lactobacilli family microbes and such. But yeah, with this, we want some fungal growth. And so we're constantly, when it gets a little high in temperature or whatever, we're making sure that we aerate it or turn it. So we're fluffing the pile or turning it over and allowing all that, bottom material to get exposed to oxygen. And in keeping it aerobic, we give the potential, we create the opportunity for aerobic microbes to multiply in there. You're never going to have fungi multiplying in a bokashi pile. Now, bokashi is great for breaking down material to, make it kind of ready for worms to eat or plants to uptake some of the nutrients. But you're not really adding. You're not adding fungi, and cannabis plant likes a 30 to 1 to 100 to 1 fungal to bacterial ratio in the soil.
Which is tough.
Not with IMO. You can get there with IMO, but yeah, it's not something you can achieve unless you're doing some static compost with carbon. So a big wood pile or something with a bunch of nutrients or food scraps or whatever in there, and then letting that sit for a year and bringing in a bunch of leaf litter from the forests and throwing it on there. So you get a bunch of growth over time. And in a year's time, you go harvest it and you're going to have some fungi, and that can build up the fungal life in your bed over time. Or you could make IMO, and in a lot less time, you can get a pretty big fungal population going. And so it is one of the most effective means of increasing the fungi in your environment.
And so now I often hear people talk about leaf mold and kind of peeling back that kind of top layer and getting that kind of substrate that's just at that edge where things are getting broken down. How does that leaf mold kind of play into the IMO preparations and stuff like that, or do they?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're placing our box right there in that place, and that's what we're collecting. Now, if the world's changing, say, we're plotting to take over the world, and we get everybody into tending to the life of their soil, and now every person in America goes out to every national forest and harvests a 5-gallon bucket of all the leaf litter in the forest, and we all rush the national parks and everything. We just scrape all that stuff off and we take it all home to our garden. We dump it all on. We would damage the ecosystem. We would hurt things.
Like a guano thing.
What?
Like a guano thing where you just go and decimate an ecosystem to try to get some nutrients.
Oh yeah, like
right.
extracting. Yeah.
So very extractive way. Now that said, yeah, you could do that. You go harvest a 5-gallon bucket of the best the forest has to offer, bring it down, dump it on your bed, and you would be, right up there with the killers of Fern Gully, and and it works. But IMO one, we can go out, we can go to that same spot, we can create a collection and get all of that life to move into our thing. We take our box away, kind of sweep those leaves we moved back into place, and we haven't really brought anything that we've left, nor have we taken anything away that wasn't there, that was already there. We've cultivated microbes that will be highly effective for our garden without extracting from the beautiful place we found them in. And usually, if we're looking for a really high life place, a place with all that mycelium and life, it's there because it's been untouched, because people haven't messed with it. And so we want to preserve it, because I might need some more of that next year, and it's going to be there waiting for me, instead of being decimated because me and my 20 friends harvested every foot of it,
Right.
brought our trash bags down.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give JR a minute to kind of figure out what his last couple questions are gonna be, because we're running out of time.
That's tough.
But before we do, before we end the show, I always want to give you an opportunity to plug or promote whatever you want. So, where can people learn more about you? Do you have like a website, Instagram, things like that folks can go to and learn more? You've mentioned videos, so I'd love for you to plug those as well.
Yeah. And there's there's ways to enter into this without getting totally confused. It's pretty hard to kind of jump in with a quick conversation and understand what natural farming is or what IMO is. So really appreciate you guys kind of pursuing knowledge and sharing this with your people. And also don't be put off if this seemed kind of overwhelming in a quick conversation, because it can be. I did make videos for that purpose. They're not perfect. So definitely, if you're getting into this, watch the videos, play with it, but also jump into some of these online communities. I have Natural Farming, KNF, and Jadam Facebook group that I have some cool admins on. But yeah, my website is biomei.solutions, biomei.solutions. Biomei is the change or shift, and for life. And so it's kind of back to that plotting to take over the world, that shift we need in that agricultural life. And on there, I have a tab. It's free resources, all kinds of information, links to videos, really easy entry spot for somebody to go and kind of click through some things and get it. I have a YouTube. You just search my name, Chris Trump. And then I have one social media I post to some, and it goes back to the first ever KNF hashtag. So if you want to scroll all the way back 10 years ago or whatever, you can see the first KNF hashtag, where I'm doing 90,000 pounds of IMO3 for our macadamia nut farm in Hawaii. But my Instagram is at Soil Steward. And that is a lot more of like, what am I doing on this farm, or what was I doing in Burma, or it's kind of just following the journey. So yeah. Yeah, I have an online class on my website, biomei.solutions, and I actually have some products. If you're just getting into natural farming and you're like, oh my gosh, OHN takes 3 months to make, I want to get started now, I got some OHN on there you can buy. Any order over $100 is free shipping. So get 2 things and you should be there.
That's so cool. I really appreciate you coming on. And I guess for my last little, sucking of your brain, as a young urban farmer who's trying to provide some nutrient dense food for their family, and they're in a urban farm, what are some of the strategies or just kind of hot points you could hit real quick for folks who are looking to get started providing in this natural way?
Yeah, I mean, finding and properly using a waste stream can be a huge tool for an urban farmer. And then having diverse microbial life to treat that waste with. So say I have me and my,
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, you've got me. I've got a bunch of stuff that I feed to my worm bin, but you've got me inspired to want to try finally doing some IMO stuff. I live near like the ocean and rivers and things like that, and I've just thought about all the different places I could stick these like bamboo boxes to collect. It'd be really neat. Yeah.
You guys are both in Oregon?
He's in Oregon. I'm in Northern California, like the Bay Area.
All right. So I have a really simple worm bin build on one of my videos. It's really easy to manage some waste and deal with food scraps and stuff using that. So it's just a pass-through worm bin design.
Oh, great. So check that out. Well, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. Thanks everyone who's been watching. We really appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know. Leave us a comment. You can comment on Spotify. You can comment on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Also, shout out to JR for putting together today's episode. Shout out to our producers of the show on CannaBuzz and all of our sponsors. And as always, JR,
Yours love.
Peace, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.